so that gradually the balance is on the side of good habits away from the side of bad habits. And we can do this. And we should realize that unless we do this, the end result is nothing. There's nothing when we follow bad habits. In the end, there's nothing but worldly consciousness. There's nothing to look forward to. But if we make up our mind and instill habits of self-control, form good habits, meditative habits, in the end, what is there? Freedom of the soul. Freedom of the soul, realization of your divinity. Realization of your divinity, that you are a child of God. And so it is worthwhile, we must do this. Another thing we should remember, that the world creates in you habits. But when the results of those bad habits come, the world will not be responsible for you. Did you ever stop to think of that? Society creates habits within us, the world creates habits, and when we carry them out and get into trouble, the world is not responsible. We are left to fight it out ourselves. And so we must never forget that. Sometimes it's easy to follow worldly habits. They come naturally. Everybody else is doing it. But when the result comes of those wrong actions, the world will not be responsible for your actions. You will be. And the world will not help you to overcome. That's the first thing. Another thing we should remember is that not to feed these bad habits, but starve them out. Starve them out, replace them with habits that are good and lift us toward God. Feed. Feed good habits by will. And what is the use of that will? To meditate. To create good habits, whereby, instead of being taken down into worldly consciousness, deeper and deeper, into this delusion of the cosmic dream, we are lifted into the reality, the unity of God's presence. And this comes by using our will to establish good meditative habits. Now going on just a bit more, the law of gravity in habit. There's a law of gravity in habit just the same as there is in matter. I guess habits are matter. They're kind of fine matter, but they have substance all right. You get engulfed in one and you'll know it. So the law of gravity as pertaining to habits is this, that bad habits or bad people seek bad company. Isn't that so? Bad people seek bad company. Worldly people seek worldly company. Now I've known, and you have known, many worldly people. They're good people. They pay their bills. They're fine people. But they don't have God contact, do they? They don't have that religious aspect, true religious aspect. Now, if you mix with those people, you'll gravitate to that level, because you will assume the habits which they have. And finally, people of meditative habits, those who meditate and come together, they draw one another and lift each other up toward God. And so those who have meditative habits, if you mix with them, you become like them. That's why when you come here to self-realization, you meditate as you're going to have a meditation before next Sunday service. You come there, mix with them, you become like them, due to the law of gravity in habit. And so that's a wonderful thing. This law of gravity is an exact thing. You mix with bad, you become like it through the law of habit. You mix with worldly people, you become like them through the law of habit. You mix with godly people, and you become like them through the law of habit. These things cannot be escaped, because environment is stronger than willpower. But establish the habit, then it's much easier to cope with the situation. Now we come to the part of the subject, why haven't you changed your habits at will? Why haven't you done it? Now stop and think. The Master was always expert on telling us what the matter was with us. So let us think just for a minute. Why haven't you changed your habits at will? There are three main reasons. First is you haven't introspected. You haven't introspected. You haven't kept a mental diary so that you sit down and you find out what you're doing wrong. How can you correct it if you do not know what you're doing wrong? And so the first important thing in understanding this law of habit and how to change your habits at will is to first introspect. Keep a mental diary. And when you sit down and introspect, you will realize the things that you have done that are wrong, then you can change them, can't you? So the first thing in overcoming habits or changing them at will is to introspect. Introspection is the first. The second thing is, as I have said, watch your company. You haven't changed your habits at will because you haven't watched your company. You've stayed perhaps with worldly people. I don't think you've been with bad people, but you've been with those people who are not doing as Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of heaven. They like things that are good, perhaps, but they don't make that the issue. They don't seek the kingdom of heaven first. And so your company is another reason why you have not changed your habits at will. You have not seen that your company is more like self-realization company, who have the one ideal is through the path which the Master has given them to go back to God. And so you haven't watched your company. You've been neglectful of that. And the last and greatest thing is what? Will. Will. Even though you stay in the best of company, even though you introspect and you don't use your will, where are you going to get? Nowhere. Will is the third and perhaps most important thing. And that will must be steady. Not to come to self-realization meetings in the first and get enthused and then peter out. The will must be steady.